So to get things kicked off, I'm excited to announce our first session today, which is called Transforming Companies in the Digital Age. And we'll be hearing from Ted Souder, a former Google executive, and the vice chair of our board, Vasko. So gentlemen, please come on up and let's get this started.
We're going to take a picture first. Wave, everyone. Amazing.
Good morning, everyone. We had a wonderful sessions yesterday, great energy, all of the speakers full of passion. What I like the most is that the passion about change. What I noticed across session, no matter the topic, whether it was policy development, whether it was digitalization, ESG, but it was in every speaker that we saw passion for change. And behind the passion, boldness to do the change and to be really bold in the moves, how to progress forward. We hope to have another wonderful day today, and I have a really big pleasure to announce my guest at this session, Ted Souder. Ted Souder is founder of Wix Holding and the former Google executive. He has been part of the digital transformation initiatives for more than 25 years, and also starting at AOL, then Google. Now he was also board at the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, and currently at the board of 1871, the world #1 private business incubator and accelerator. He, being one of the first employees at Google, he was part of the success story of Google becoming one of the largest and most successful companies in the world. He is now advisor to VC funds and startups, making sure that they know how to navigate the path of change and development, but with passion and digital transformation. With his vast global experience and unique perspective that he gained through years, he is advisor to organizations and governments today, how they can benefit out of the opportunities coming by embracing digital transformation and change. We had a brief discussion yesterday with Ted, trying to discuss how we can shape up the session today. But what was great about it is that we have a lot to talk about. The challenge today would be to wrap it up in 30 minutes, because I'm sure that we can fully do a discussion for about 8 hours, but we don't have that, so that we need to really be wrapping up in the 30 minutes today.
We can do a whole nother summit just on this.
So, welcome, Ted. Welcome to Skopje. Thank you for being here and supporting the summit and the efforts of Macedonia 2025, building a stronger nation and more prosperous future.
Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me. I've had just an incredible couple of days. I'm from Chicago, and it's actually really easy to get here. Lots of Chicago in the room. And it's actually really easy to get here, thanks to Turkish Air. Flew right through Istanbul, landed here, and it's just been a great experience, so thank you.
Ted, what can you tell us about Wix Holding? What's your business in Wix Holding?
So just brief background. As you mentioned, I was very, very fortunate to be one of Google's very early employees, primarily based in Chicago, but I also spent a year in Paris, France. Like many of you, I was at home during the pandemic. Google was actually one of the first large companies in the US to send everybody home on or around, I think it was like March 12th. And during that period at home, I had a lot of time to reflect on my career, on my life. I got COVID, I had lots of friends who got sick, I know a couple people who passed away, and started to think about what I want to do in the next stage of my life. Had an incredible experience at Google, accomplished so much, saw so many wonderful products come to market, saw lives being changed, saw businesses flourishing, and realized that I've done everything that I want to do, and now I want to go out and embark and spread the good news about the opportunity that digital transformation allows businesses, education institutions, nonprofits, governments, etc. So I'm able to come to places such as this, talk about the opportunities. I always meet with local leaders from the startup ecosystem, hear about the great work that's happening there, and hopefully have a little bit of impact along the way.
So you mentioned the pandemic, the digital transformation and the change that it brings. It was there even before pandemic. But what's specific after the pandemic? What is the new, I would say, movement in the digital transformation that is happening after the pandemic?
So most businesses, and most entities, I should say, had some sort of medium to long range digital transformation or digital adoption plan, whether it was figuring out ways to optimize supply chain, or perhaps thinking about how to better market themselves online versus different ad products, mobile, video, et cetera. But when the pandemic came, all of a sudden, all of those plans were pulled to the future. It was like the pandemic was a time machine to the future. Now, all of a sudden, all of those plans were brought to the forefront because if you remember, during this time, it was businesses, schools, et cetera, if they had a digital connection to their customers, to their constituents, to their students, they had an easier time during the pandemic. And so at Google, we worked with businesses to try to help them maximize those digital connections so they're able to, at the very baseline, stay in business during the pandemic. And it worked. And what we found is that businesses that had invested in digital capabilities before the pandemic, or at least during the pandemic, were the ones that are having the easiest time accelerating out of the pandemic. The businesses that have not invested in digital infrastructure or are waiting for 2019 to come back, those are the businesses that are having the most difficult time. Not across the board, but generally speaking, those are the things that we have seen. So
the lessons learned is that digital transformation is not all about efficiency and growth, but it's also resiliency. So businesses are more resilient if they're more digitalized.
Digital transformation is in everyone's future. That's what's going to happen.
I always think about what's different for businesses in Macedonia compared, for example, let's say US or other developed countries. So if I compare a typical small-medium business in Macedonia and a small-medium business in US, what is different in the ecosystem supporting those businesses? And I always question, is it easier to do business if you are in this open, free, more competitive market, but also supported with a lot of digital tools that are available there, but not so much available here? Of course, all those social media tools and globalized company tools are available to most of the companies across the world, but there are also niche products and niche applications and digital tools that are available only in US that are not available for small businesses in Macedonia. First of all, language barrier, but second of all, specific to the local market that develop those tools. Mm-hmm. How do the future looks like for companies competing and being more successful if we are lagging behind in this?
So it's an interesting question, and wherever I go around the world, people always talk about they want to build their own Silicon Valley. I understand why they say that, but what I would prefer what you do is you build your own Macedonia and you create products and services that are applicable to what your consumers need and what your businesses need, what your students need, et cetera. So there's lots of examples around the world where early on certain products and services and platforms might not have been available. So like Careem in the Middle East, before Uber. All throughout the African continent, they have a completely different way of accessing the internet, often on feature phones, on low bandwidth smartphones. And so their needs are totally different than what we have in the US, and the same thing happening here in Macedonia. So because startups can be created anywhere at any time, it's understanding what does your market need and then supporting the startup ecosystem to build localized products. Now, the second part of that is that I think from a geopolitical standpoint around the world, we're going through a very large transformation of its own and moving to a very much a new kind of multipolar world where there's going to be the rise of Southeast Asia. If you look at the population statistics in the African continent, it's all young people. There is an opportunity for smaller states such as Macedonia or Armenia, Georgia, others, to really rise and to collectively and come together and create new markets, new opportunities together. So I actually think that the brightest days for your country and your startup ecosystem and the consumers around that are actually ahead. Now it's a matter of how do we support the entrepreneurial ecosystem? How do you, as leaders in the room, meet with the startups and mentor them, invest in them, get the government to support their efforts, be it through policy change, funding, other localized needs that you have? If these things are done, I think you have a really, really vibrant future. And then with all these other small states and the ecosystem around the globe, you can create entirely new markets.
It's great what I'm hearing, but there is a challenge here, what we see on the market. So if you look out at the IT markets, at the companies at the IT market in Macedonia, I would say more than 95% of them are oriented towards outsourcing. So basically they sell their services on per hour basis for other companies across the world so they can develop products and services for the market. So I always compare this to the energy crisis. During the energy crisis, we found out that if the country doesn't have the energy independence in production of own energy, then they were challenged. And the overall competitiveness of the country and the companies was challenged because that's a scarce resource that's going high on pricing, and then it's killing their competitiveness in terms of being competitive on price, being able to produce, first of all, and then competitive on price. But if you look also on the IT side, that IT resources are now also key ingredient to be globally competitive, and we are not using it, we are selling it outside. To make a comparison, it's like during the energy crisis, instead of energy that is produced to be available to the companies in the country, we are exporting it and giving them no access to it.
Right.
The challenge is how to push and how to create this innovative startup scene or even established companies to transform them into, from outsourcing to product services orientation, where they will create their own products and services for the markets they are addressing.
Yeah.
How do we move that forward?
So that's a really big question. So much of this comes down to education, but at all levels. And so there's a lot of efforts underway in numerous countries where they are starting to put artificial intelligence programming in curriculum starting when kids are in elementary, junior, and even high school. So that kids today, as they come out of their early schooling years, are at least baseline educated in the future of what technology is going to afford opportunities. So starting those education programs, starting them early. There's a big program right now within the African continent around creating the next generation of leaders, primarily digitally based. So it's in schools teaching people so that they graduate, but it's also doing some re-educating of people today that are out in the workforce to have them be not only more digitally literate, which should be a baseline, but also to create strong leaders of tomorrow, people that can come and advocate for the right policy changes so that businesses can thrive, so the startup ecosystem can thrive, so that you're able to serve foreign markets. You know, outsourcing is not a totally bad thing. We see Jordan does a really nice job with that sort of thing around architecture and construction programs because that's where their strength lies. But we need to do more education programs, we need more government support, and we need better leaders who understand that the past is the past and there's a bright new digitally driven future, but it's not going to happen without effort.
Create a digital first mindset among the leaders. So instead of thinking traditional way, it's tapping the digital first. So whatever you're doing, having the digital first mindset
Yeah,
at your hand.
and think about this. Branding is important for your businesses, right? Branding is important for a country as well. And so there's lots of examples of countries around the world that have, deemed themselves startup nation. That's not new. But what they're doing is they're creating a sense of excitement. They're building a brand around their embrace of digital, their ease of use. I look at what Estonia had done long before anyone, putting all of their programs online, making it easy to do business with the government, easy to invest, et cetera. The UAE, and in particular Dubai, has done an incredible job of branding themselves as a place that's open and ready for business. They have the golden visa, which just sounds cool. Wouldn't you love a golden visa? That's great branding, so that's fun. But they also created the DIFC, which is its own little Singapore within Dubai, with these great low-cost or no-tax scheme programs that you arrive at the airport, they greet you, they bring you in, they give you office space, they give you the golden visa. So there's lots of branding and excitement that also needs to be a part of the program. Now, there needs to be meat on the bone, as they would say, but branding is really important. And so talking about, I need to be in Macedonia because that is where exciting things are happening.
We also see that there is this challenge, chicken or egg, whether we need to create the demand so we can create the innovative startup scene, but also how to create that without changing the mindset of leaders that they need to push towards this path. You heard yesterday that we announced that we're going to establish a new digital transformation agency aimed to support digital transformation to small and medium enterprises.
Yeah.
So from your background experience in the accelerator, how do you structure your work? How do you support the innovative startups in the ICT and creating demand for them? And how do you push, or how do you challenge the traditional or existing businesses to move towards change? What is the strategy that you're doing in 1871?
You listen. Creating a digital transformation agency, program, effort, et cetera, absolutely. Have to do that. But we need to listen and to understand, what do our SMEs need? What do consumers need? What do people joining the workforce need? And then start to fill those needs. And so at 1871, which is, before the pandemic, we were rated the #1 private tech incubator in the world. And 1871 is named after the Great Fire of Chicago. And the story about the Great Fire of Chicago was not the fire itself, but the rebirth afterwards. It was the entrepreneurs who came in and built a new city from the ground up. And so we wanted to rebuild Chicago from the ground up for the digital age. But first we had to listen and understand, what does the city need? What do our customers need? What do the startups need? And start to build content, programming, space around those needs. And we didn't get it right every time. You never do. But if you're constantly listening, if you're trying new things, you find out what works. And so now, 15 years into our journey, I think we're just starting to hit our stride with the right type of programming for the founders, for the scale-ups, for our corporate partners, for our government relation programs, et cetera, and creating a platform, services, and content that is of real value. And so it takes time, but you have to listen in the beginning to understand what the needs are and then start to fill those needs. If you just open an agency and start pushing down whatever it is that the agency does, I think that's going to be a difficult road.
Thank you. So it's important to kickstart the change, and I suppose there is need of some kind of incentives to push companies going this path. So when we talk about incentives, I'm not talking about incentives to the ICT companies to do something to develop, but I'm talking about the incentives into the SMEs, how to push forward and change their businesses by introducing digital transformation. Have you any experience in Chicago or any country in the world where you have been working, where you saw some good incentive program, and how does it function?
I think the best incentive out there is to give smart people a big challenge to solve and letting them go. Here's a problem. Here's a product we want to build. Here's a solution to a global issue, climate change, whatever. Smart people want to work hard and do great things. And so give them a challenge, give them the tools and resources, and then let them go. And don't micromanage them. Give them objectives, give them steps that need to be taken to reach those objectives, or OKRs as Google measures themselves. But to me, that's the best incentive. And trust me, at Google, I had every perk in the world. I had free food, 3 meals a day. If I wanted to take a nap, I could take a nap in the nap pod. I could get a massage. I could play volleyball. I mean, everything. It was nuts. And it was a lot of fun, too. I mean, don't get me wrong. But what I really enjoyed about being a part of the Google experience was that I was having a meaningful impact on the businesses with whom we worked. So my team would generate billions of dollars in revenue. And behind that revenue were thousands or tens of thousands of jobs that we were helping at a baseline maintain or grow. And so that was really meaningful for me in my organization. And I would tell everybody that at the end of the day, we're in advertising, but there are real jobs behind the ads that we're selling. And so give people meaning, give them support, give them encouragement, give them feedback, good and bad, to help them grow and develop. And that's, I think, the best incentive out there.
What's your opinion how the world is going to change after this, let's say, economic downturn that we're experiencing after the energy crisis? So we also see that companies in US even are in a process of laying offs, shrinking, they're cost cutting, and we already saw that the largest ICT companies in US are already downscaling the number of employees. How this is going to turn out on the short run and maybe intermediate term in terms of the prospects for the new digital tools, in terms of investment, because companies are now more modest in investing in general, but I don't think they're going to be modest in the investment of ICT tools. How do you see this change? How this will impact the upcoming digital transformation challenge for companies?
So downturns always happen, and they will happen again. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's always difficult to lose a job. I understand that. The impact it can have on you, your family, employees, your business, I understand all of that. But what it does is it helps refocus business towards the next stage of growth. So what we saw over the past 10 years, really since the financial crisis in the US, was that it was a period of good times. Unemployment was low. In many places around the world, stock markets were up. Businesses often were hiring. The tech industry hiring was off the charts. And then came the pandemic, and the tech industry and others all of a sudden overestimated the transition to online. Online's been growing 5, 10, 15% year over year, kind of forever. But all of a sudden, the explosion in online usage during the pandemic created unrealistic expectations of where this is going to go. So businesses needed to recalibrate and started to rethink about the future.
Trim down.
Yeah. Enter in AI, and specifically ChatGPT. How many of you use ChatGPT or a like tool? I want to see every hand go up, at least by the end of the day or maybe to the end of the day tomorrow. So artificial intelligence itself isn't new. Artificial intelligence has been around for 50 years. What ChatGPT did is it made it easy to use, it made it super relevant for really anybody, and it made businesses recognize that we need to invest in our artificial intelligence capabilities
Yesterday.
like by noon today. And businesses that are investing in AI capabilities and utilizing even basic tools like Google Bard or ChatGPT or the 50 other generative AI products are the ones that are going to start to create new opportunities and do new things, find new efficiencies, et cetera. So that's a good thing. And you're going to see new jobs created, new business models being created, new entrepreneur endeavors being created. So it's actually a super, super exciting time. And it's just happening today. So I can't wait to come back next year and I can say, okay, now how many of you have implemented ChatGPT APIs into your business, be it real estate or shipping or whatever, and every hand's going to go up. And you're going to be like, this is amazing. The impact it's having on our business. It's really, really fun.
What I see with ChatGPT is basically, we come back to the first question or the second question today, where we said, what are the disadvantages of businesses in Macedonia compared to US in access to digital tools? But with ChatGPT, this is bridged because access to ChatGPT APIs basically give you access to the background of knowledge, processes, tools that is available globally. So there is no restriction in terms of usage of the ChatGPT for Macedonian businesses and getting access to the knowledge that you can.
So we've always had access to the world's information.
Information, yes, but not tools.
But now what we're doing is making better sense of it. The answers that you get from a search engine were just a bunch of blue links. And then you had to click on one and search, and that didn't work. And it was, now we realize it was kind of clunky. With ChatGPT, now I'm getting specifically what I'm looking for. And just to be careful, not everything that you're receiving via ChatGPT is true or right. So don't just copy and paste and be like, I'm done, because it's not always right. So you have to be careful. You have to do your homework. But that's my disclaimer.
No, but my comment was more into direction not about the information access, but access to tools, because you can instruct ChatGPT to develop your application.
Yeah.
And develop this application based on the library of tools and APIs and whatever is accessed globally by ChatGPT.
Yeah, so it's almost like this big democratization tool where I can go into ChatGPT, and again, some of the other tools that are out there, and literally say, write me the code for an app that can do X, Y, and Z. And you have to be really specific about the prompt that you're giving it. But all of a sudden, I don't have to know how to code anymore. That's really powerful. Before, if you wanted to create some amazing application or a plugin on your browser or whatever, you had to know how to code or use different tools and resources. It was very engineering heavy. That's not necessarily the case anymore. Engineers aren't going away.
No.
But ChatGPT and others are enabling me to do more with the very little knowledge that I possess as a pure business person. So it's really powerful
Exciting
stuff.
future.
Yeah.
I will ask if there is some questions. Yeah, but it's not accessible. So while we see if there is some question from the audience, Kirk, can you? Yeah.
The most popular question was, what are some of the key technical skills that leaders need to learn to greet the next stages of the digital transformation occurring in their context?
What are the key technical skills that needs to be embraced or learned by the leaders, by the executives, so they can embrace the digital transformation change?
I'm going to go straight to where I was. That you as leaders and the leaders with whom you're developing need to have a comfortable fluency with the online tools like a ChatGPT, so that, one, you can come to the realization that digital transformation is in your future, that I am committing to transforming myself and my business. I'm comfortable with that, and I'm going to start to understand where the friction points in my business lie. I'm going to start to understand how some of the tools and resources that are out there will smooth out some of those friction points. I'm going to assign a team of smart people in my organization to go and start this journey. We're going to look out into the marketplace and find partners who can help us on that journey. You don't have to do this alone. What are the startups that can help move you from friction to fluidity? And then I'm going to write a new 5 to 10 year business plan. Because any business plan that you're working off of that was written before March of 2020 is super outdated. So that's the plan. That's the 5 steps you need to take.
That's a great takeaway. We need to rework our business plans with the future.
100%.
With the today influence of the future.
Yes.
Absolutely. Any final comment for the audience?
We have another one.
Yeah,
I think we
another
have
question.
one more good question, I think, that is very relatable to this crowd in some ways as well. Which comes first, the push from the government to brand the country as a digital transformation hub, or businesses coming together and pushing for change?
Both.
Both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Yeah, it actually gets back to what I was just talking about. It's making the commitment to change. It's making the commitment to welcome transformation into our lives, into our government, into our business community, into our education systems, etc., while at the same time telling the world that this is what we are doing, and then inviting people in to come transform with us. Smart, energetic people today want to get in on the ground floor of anything. And so going to the diaspora and saying, we're committed to change, we're putting the people into place, we're putting the policies into place, we're putting the financial backing into place, come be a part of this at the ground floor, I think that'll get people excited. Or at least it'll get some people excited in the beginning. And then as they see momentum starting to happen, they're going to want to jump in all over that. And a great country to look to where that's happening, 2 examples. One is Armenia. 2/3 of Armenians live outside of Armenia.
Very similar statistics here.
Primarily in LA, down the street from the Kardashians, who are Armenian. And the Armenian government's very aware of that. They love that. But also, I love what's going on in Dubai and some of the GCC region, where through some of their visa schemes, their ease of doing business, et cetera, the flood of
Smart
expats and smart people into the country is unbelievable. And a secret weapon of a lot of, maybe weapon is not the right term, a secret strategy of many smart entrepreneurs, startup hubs, and some governments, et cetera, is the outflow of highly trained, educated Russian talent that has left the country and likely won't be going back anytime soon. But they have a very strong technical foundation. And so a lot of businesses, startups, hubs, et cetera, are saying, come in and we'll give you meaning, we'll give you businesses to work on. We want your technical talent. And there are hundreds of thousands of highly educated Russians looking for jobs. And a lot of them are kind of parked in the stands right now in some other type of countries. So there's opportunities to excite younger, talented, primarily tech-trained workers to come in to be a part of the transformation.
Thank you, Ted. This was really inspiring and energizing talk. I hope we see you more often in Skopje and in Macedonia, and I would like to see forward a more engaged in cooperation between 1871, Wix Holding, Macedonia 2025, our new agency for digital transformation, because there is a lot of knowledge that you have and your experience and in your organizations that I'm certain that can help us just go faster forward.
We're ready to help, and I can't wait to watch the progress.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.